Welcome back to A People's Guide to Publishing. I'm Joe Beal, the founder and CEO of Microcosm Publishing and Distribution. I'm also the author of A People's Guide to Publishing, which distills what I've learned from selling millions of books over the past 25 years.
I'm Ellie Blue. I'm the editorial and marketing director here at Microcosm. We are an independent mid-list publisher based in Portland, Oregon. We have 14 employees, over 650 titles in print with 20 to 40 new books per year, and we distribute thousands of titles from other publishers.
We started this podcast so that we can share what we've learned with newer publishers so that you can learn from our mistakes.
Or perhaps you just want to better understand the publishing industry.
This week, we are going to talk about some newly published books that we've just made and taken off of a truck painstakingly.
And what do they have in common?
They were both a lot of work books.
Workbooks. There'll be a lot of work for you, too. But we're going to talk about how much work they were for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because this program is all about us.
Well, it's really about how you could do some of the things we do, or maybe choose not to do them.
Learn from our mistakes.
Workbooks. Workbooks, not a mistake. Spoiler alert. Joe, how did we come to make a lot of workbooks at Microcosm? We didn't really ever start out as a workbook company.
Once upon a time, back when you had to walk uphill to school both ways, we were publishing a brand new book. We were in Europe. We were publishing a book called... No, I think it was before we went to Europe. Anyway, we were publishing a book called Unfuck Your Brain, which Ellie did not fully understand why I said, make this PowerPoint work as a book. And until we were suddenly seeing what those pre-orders were like, what those Kickstarter sales were like, what those book sales remain like 5 years later.
Now I get it. But while we were doing the Kickstarter project,
we had, I don't know, somebody had the bad idea to make a second book to make part of the campaign that we would, I believe, give away for free.
Yeah, it was a stretch goal. So we were like, looks like we're going to make $30,000 if we make $40,000. You'll all get a workbook zine.
And that was sort of a no-brainer. We should have done it for like $80,000 or something, because
yeah, we had no trouble making that goal.
Making a second book is, as you probably all know, as book publishers, a lot of work.
Yes.
And part of that issue, was we were like, oh, okay, well, the however many X number of backers will just get these, and I think we printed maybe 3,000 of that workbook, because we were like, well, what are we going to do with them after the fact? And, what happened is we sold them all because we got a ton of orders from other places. We granted, 5 years later, we sold 5,000 of those workbooks this week.
Wow.
A 5-year-old workbook.
It's a 32-page zine, to be real. It's not even something a bookstore would put on their shelves, really, necessarily. And,
it's just the part of it is the initial success of the book drives the sales of the workbook so effortlessly. You'll see this a lot in publishing where you're like, the notebook set that goes with the book, or the greeting card set that goes with the book. Well, when you're dealing in self-help and or understanding your own inner trauma from an actual trauma therapist, having a workbook is a very useful addendum to the book.
Yeah, some people like the workbook to go with the book, and other people want the workbook instead of the book. They would just rather do the work.
Yeah, they think they don't need the book, or they think they'll figure that part out on their own, and maybe they will. Maybe they're smarter than we are. Good for them. But so also in Workbooklandia, if you recall from, if you are, let's just assume that you're a heavy consumer of this program, you will remember Quit Your Day Job from a few weeks ago, or maybe months ago now. Who can really keep track in COVID? We now are also the proud publishers of the Quit Your Day Job workbook, which is a similar title.
I would say this is a standalone book that you wouldn't even need the original book.
Yeah.
If you got this book.
There is literally twice as much paper in the workbook as there is in the book.
Yeah, it's a big workbook.
Yeah.
It's a chunky one.
And it's a brilliant book. It tells you everything from figuring out why you're on social media to, things like how to understand the community that you're a part of, to understanding financialization of your craft project that you are turning into a business, to, just really like how to use your time, how to break that out into tasks and to-do lists, and, really like how to prioritize. Like there's a lot of things. Well, there's a lot of business books. There's even a lot of business books for artists now, but I'm not going to say that I had a low expectation of this book. I had like a medium-high expectation of this book, and what actually she produced totally blew me away.
Oh, it's an amazing book, and it came out kind of at the perfect time. Like, I feel like the title, we would have titled it differently if we'd known it would be coming out during a pandemic where people were leaving their day jobs for reasons not of their own volition, but it's also, like, very timely for, people who are making a career change or considering one. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, it's just good. Like, if you've ever thought about starting a business...
And she has sample ways to set boundaries with scripts.
Oh, it's so
Who
good.
else has that? I don't have that.
Now you do, in that book.
That's true. How to talk about money.
So, speaking of money, we also, earlier this year, published another book by Dr. Faith, Unfuck Your Worth. Mm-hmm. And now, every time we have a Dr. Faith book, we have a workbook to go with it. We have learned that lesson. And thus, just off the truck in the last month, Unfuck Your Worth, the workbook. Mm-hmm. And so, I would say these two are also standalone, but, like, they're complementary. Like, I'd say Quit Your Day Job workbook and Quit Your Day Job, you probably just need one or the other. This one I would... Like, the Unfuck Your Worth book is like having 32 sessions with your therapist talking about your money hangups, and the workbook is much more like, all right, I'm going to make a budget. All right, I'm going to pay down my debt. I'm going to figure out how to meet my needs for less. I'm going to fill in my debt thermometer. I'm going to make a plan for my next career move, or I'm going to make a script for asking for a raise. All of that. It's very practical stuff, as well as stuff like figuring out your values and your values around money. There's worksheets for talking to your partner about money and figuring out where your values overlap and don't. Valuable stuff. Mm-hmm. So
you just gave me a look.
We should fill this out. I think it would be super interesting.
It would be interesting.
But anyway, I think the other important thing for publishers to know about workbooks is they're very rewarding in terms of sales and in terms of people being excited about your book. They're also so much work. They're how much more work are they than putting together a regular book? And
on the production side, it's probably about 5 to 10 times as many hours. But, it's similarly, it's like if you have a shoe-in book, then a shoe-in workbook is a no-brainer because it's a second book to sell in with it to stores, and it's a second book to sell in, if you have an evergreen title, you now have, how many? 2 evergreen titles.
I would say it's half again the work of the original book for the author, and it's probably twice the work of the original book for the editor. I guess depending on how much work the original book was.
So authors take note.
I know, right? I mean, you really need to get the author to rewrite their introduction and come up with a ton of exercises, and then you sort of hopefully can collaborate with them to fill in those gaps, give it a structure, make those exercises work. It's a different kind of editing, I guess. It's more like digging a ditch. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is super satisfying, and then at the end you have a big hole.
Great. Got a lot of holes around here. Anyway, this has been A People's Guide to Publishing, where we'll see you next week, where we talk about some more books.
Yay, books.
Thanks for joining us once again.
Please send your questions to podcast@microcosmpublishing.com so we can answer them on future episodes.
And please give us 5 stars on iTunes and everywhere else that podcasts are reviewed.
You can find us on the internet at microcosm.pub.
On Twitter at Microcosm.
On Facebook at Microcosm Publishing.
On Instagram at Microcosm_pub.
And here in Portland, Oregon on North Williams Avenue.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful week.